Yo, this is MegaManFan, and you need to rock and or roll on over to Mr. MegaManFan's YouTube channel, because it's all that rush to make it happen. Peace!
Thanks as always to MegaRam for that wonderful intro. I'm Mr. MegaManFan, and today I'm looking at Everdrive N8 Pro games that come with your purchase of the system. Now, I don't actually have the Everdrive N8 Pro yet because it is awaiting fulfillment, as the Stone Age Gamer website says, which basically means it's back ordered, they need more manufactured, and once they have enough, they will ship them out. But when you purchase it, you get a download pack of 24 officially licensed and available commercially games that they have the exclusive rights to distribute, one of which is AO. And if you wanted to buy AO alone by itself, it would cost you $40 for a cartridge, manual, and box CIB. I don't know if I would spend $40 on AO by itself. I'm not even that much of a fan of it as one of 24 games included, but if we do some AVGN style math, you're paying $168.99 for the Everdrive N8 Pro, and it comes with 24 games, so that's an average of just over $7 a game. I suppose compared to what a full physical edition goes for, not that bad. Compared to what most classic NES games go for, not that bad. But AO in particular is one that I just can't see paying $7 for, paying $40 for, paying any exorbitant amount of money for. Here's how they describe it on Good Deal Games. If you like puzzle games and you're up for a challenge, this is the game for you. Roll a brick around a game board and drop it through the goal pit. Sounds easy, right? You'll have to avoid falling off the edge while maneuvering around tight areas. Do you think you can make it through all the levels before your score reaches 0? Actually, it's more like, can you reach the level's end before your interest wanes completely? Your interest will run down to 0 long before that. The music is repetitive, the game is bad. Beer Slinger, on the other hand, is a much more worthy candidate for your $7. And coincidentally enough, Good Deal Games also sells a physical edition of this one for $39.75. And this I would actually be tempted to pay for. There are a lot of things working for this game. The soundtrack is pleasing. The pixel art style is fondly reminiscent of games from the Atari 2600 era. The gameplay aesthetic is essentially what if Tapper, but horizontal instead of vertical. So what you're doing in this game is patrons are coming up to the bar, requesting either a lager or an IPA in this first level, and you fulfill their order and take it to them before they get impatient and start complaining. Now, there are several additional things that differentiate this from Tapper, one of which is the voice acting, which I did not expect in a homebrew NES game, so good on them for making that part of it. Also, the fact that while you're fulfilling these orders, multiple people are coming up on either side and placing orders at the same time, whereas in Tapper, they were all ordering the same thing, and you were just slinging beers down the bar stand as fast as you could. But in this case, you have to remember who ordered what and juggle it correctly, because if you don't serve them in time, they'll be mad, and if you serve them the wrong thing, they'll be mad. Obviously, the complexity will go up from there. As you can see on day 3, I have to hit $100 worth of successful orders, and this time I have 3 different types of beer that I have to serve: stout, IPA, and lager. And the game will also try to trip you up by having the voices of the patrons modulate at different frequencies. So sometimes they're muttering, sometimes they're really high-pitched, and if you're not listening carefully, you could hear one thing and serve it and turn out to be completely wrong. So you have to watch the visual cues and not just pay attention to the audio, or vice versa. I love the level of intricacy that went into what is ostensibly a very simple game concept. So Beer Slinger gets high praise from me. Kudos to Second Dimension for developing this NES game. I'd call it Tapper with a twist. And as one of the 24 games that's bundled with the Everdrive N8 Pro, I can definitely recommend it as a good value addition. Now, you're not buying the Everdrive N8 Pro just for the included games. That's a bonus, but at the same time, the fact that I get to play these games before it arrives, thanks to the downloadable bundle pack that comes with the purchase, I think that could be a tipping point for some people in making their purchase. It makes it worth the wait, even knowing that you have to spend a few weeks, maybe even a month and a half until your order gets fulfilled. You get something now, and then you get your Everdrive N8 Pro later. Our next game is one that actually came out on Nintendo back in the day. This is not a homebrew. This is Motor City Patrol, a game made by Matchbox International, designed by Ross Harris and Ian Richards, composed by Chris Gill and Link Tomlin, and came out in North America January 1992. As you can see from the gameplay footage here, it's a top-down perspective where you are in a patrol car and you're going around the city trying to take care of all the things going on that a police officer in a patrol car would deal with. Speeders, robbers, public enemies, and of course, you don't want to hurt the civilians. You have to avoid doing damage to them or doing damage to your patrol car. As you can see, you've got a meter at the top that shows just how quickly your car can be damaged if you hit too many other cars or run into buildings or do any of the stupid things that I'm doing here, because as I was recording the gameplay footage, I didn't have a manual in front of me. I didn't pull up an instruction manual online. I just decided, winging a prayer, let's see how good it is. And with the first game, that didn't work out so well. Second game turned out to be pretty easy to get into and pretty addictive to play. Third game, well, we're back to where we were with the first game. This is problematic. I suppose, and I'm being very generous when I say this, I suppose if you like the very first Grand Theft Auto on PlayStation, you might find some familiarity with this top-down perspective. It's not as good as Grand Theft Auto. That's, like I said, I'm being very, very generous with that. So I tried to pick up the targets that were along the screen that are flashing as I drove by. That didn't really help. I tried to get to the precinct as the game directed me to. That didn't really seem to help. Finally, I just pulled up at what looked like a driveway between the police station and the building next to it, and it finally ended the mission. I don't even know if that was how I was supposed to end the mission, but it ended there. And I didn't do very well, and I got a couple demerits, and I decided that was enough of that. So now, for the final game I'm checking out from the N8 Pro download pack, this is Get 'em Gary. I should have cued in on the alliteration in the title right away as to what they were about, but I'll save you the suspense and tell you this is basically Fix-It Felix. If you know Fix-It Felix, you're already going to understand the premise of Get 'em Gary. What you're doing here is going up the building, fixing all the things that have been broken, and avoiding all of the obstacles that are thrown at you. Bombs, bowling balls, anything that could impede your ability to complete the level. Now, is this compelling content? If you like Fix-It Felix, the answer is yes. If you wanted a NES version of Fix-It Felix, I think you're going to be happy with this game. Is it shameless in copying Fix-It Felix? Absolutely it is. I mean, they're probably lucky that the Wreck-It Ralph people, the Walt Disney Animation people, that they don't come after them for unlicensed usage of Fix-It Felix. But maybe this is just far enough from it to be considered a parody, a tribute, a derivative style game. There was some precedent for that in the 1980s where people who made Pac-Man clones were able to successfully get their titles, like basically they would get sued for trademark or copyright infringement, and the judge would rule, hey, this is just a form of game. You can't own a form of game. You can own the look and feel of certain elements, but you can't own the idea. Ideas can't be just owned. You can't own the idea of a maze game. You can't own the idea of a shooter. Anybody can make a maze game. Anybody can make a shooter. So a lot of those lawsuits for trademark infringement and copyright infringement actually got shot down. And on that basis, they could probably just say, well, look, this is a Crazy Climber derivative game. So it's coincidental that it's like Fix-It Felix, because Fix-It Felix was like Crazy Climber. They were both following that idea, that same template. So how can you strike down one and not strike down the other? And in fact, with the missiles dropping overhead into your play field, you would even say it's derivative of Donkey Kong, which of course was an inspiration for Wreck-It Ralph in and of itself, was traversing up a building while objects are being thrown down on top of you. Something that you also saw in Atari 2600 games like Kaboom, except you were catching the objects that were being thrown down at you instead of trying to avoid them. Lots of different things going on with Get 'em Gary. The source of their inspiration is obvious, but it's a fun game to play, so I'm not going to fault them for that. Repair the windows, close the shutters, avoid the bowling balls and the bombs, complete the level as fast as you can, and then you advance to the next stage. Why the high score says 42 on the title screen, I don't know. Why does it matter that there's a place called West Spring Manor that you're repairing these windows? I don't know. Is there a physical edition of this game? Well, let's look at Good Deal Games, because I already found both AO and Beer Slinger there. Scrolling down the page with the Scola Baton, and yes, Good Deal Games does sell Get 'em Gary for $39.75. And it's funny, everything I just said is in this description. Inspired by Donkey Kong, Wrecking Crew, and Fix-It Felix Jr. Well, that is incredibly accurate. Thank you, Good Deal Games. Their boxed version of this, complete with the manual and cartridge, will cost you $39.75. I'm Mr. MegaManFan. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next episode, perhaps with some more Everdrive N8 Pro games. We shall see when the time comes.